New York City, the city of dreams. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. But that also means $8 coffees, incredibly slow buses, and totally unaffordable living. But what if the next mayor said, let's make buses free, let's freeze the rent, and let's make childcare public? Sounds like a fantasy, right?
In an age of darkness, New York can be the light, and we can prove once and for all that the politics we practice need not be one of either fear or mediocrity.
Well, meet Zohran Mamdani, the 33-year-old who might just pull it off. But here's how the story is actually larger than New York. Across the world, democracy feels like it's cracking. Populism has swept through Europe, the far right is back in France and Italy, and in the US, politics has become a permanent culture war. But in New York City, a 33-year-old socialist named Zohran Mamdani is running for mayor and winning. He's not just a local politician, he's part of a new global wave of leaders who are reimagining what democracy can look like in the 21st century. Young, urban, immigrant, and unafraid to talk about redistribution in a capitalist capital. From London's Sadiq Khan to Barcelona's Ada Colau to New York's Mamdani, the city has become the front line for political renewal in the West. While national governments stall, cities are becoming laboratories for the future, where the debates over climate, housing, and justice actually meet people's daily lives. And this right here is the most ambitious experiment yet. A Ugandan-born Indian heritage Muslim organizer trying to turn the world's financial hub into a model of economic justice. Free childcare, free buses, frozen rent, and a tax plan that targets the city's richest 1%.
We will freeze make buses fast and deliver universal.
So what does Zohran Mamdani's rise say about the future of the Democratic Party and about democracy itself? In today's dossier, we'll talk about whether this is just a New York story or if it's something much bigger happening across the Western world. Now first, let's talk about who is Zohran Mamdani. Zohran Kwame Mamdani was born in Kampala, Uganda. His father, Mahmoud Mamdani, is a Ugandan Indian political theorist. His mother, Meera Nair, is the Indian filmmaker behind Monsoon Wedding and other hits. The family moved to New York when he was 7, settling in Queens, where he still lives. He went to Bronx Science and then Bowdoin College, studied Africana Studies, and became a housing counselor, helping families fight eviction. In 2020, he ran for state assembly. He was 29, unknown, running against a 4-term incumbent, and he won. That was his blueprint: grassroots organizing, community trust, and a policy that actually matters to the working people. When Mamdani launched his 2025 campaign to run for mayor, the media laughed. He was up against Andrew Cuomo, a former governor, political giant, and a fundraising machine. But Mamdani had something Cuomo didn't: support of the people. According to the New York Times, Mamdani's campaign rewrote the social media rulebook. He made 30-second TikToks about rent control. He broke down bus policy at bodegas. He used humor and clarity to explain how city politics affects real life and left us all wondering, how the hell does this man speak so many languages? And those videos worked. Voter turnout among people under 30 doubled. 60% of newly registered voters showed up, and most backed Mamdani. In June 2025, he actually beat Cuomo, and suddenly, New York had a socialist frontrunner. Now, Mamdani isn't your usual politician. He's 33, South Asian, Muslim, a renter, a subway rider, and he edits his own campaign videos. He drops into Twitch streams, and he doesn't hide from his label. He calls himself a democratic socialist. And he's not trying to scare Wall Street. He's actually trying to make New York livable again. Here's what he plans to do. He promises to immediately freeze rents for all stabilized tenants and tackle New York's housing crisis head-on. He'll also crack down on landlords housing the 500,000 New Yorkers living in poor conditions. If they don't fix issues, the city does, and then sends them the bill. New York City also has America's slowest buses. He wants to make them free and faster by adding lanes, queue jump signals, and multi-door boarding. Then, along with free childcare, he also plans to make city-owned grocery stores. And here's something interesting. He wants to raise the corporate tax to 11.5% and add a 2% surcharge on millionaires, together bringing in about $9 billion a year. Now, can he actually do all of this? Here's the reality check. Free buses, possible, but it means convincing the MTA to give up $500 million in fares. Then rent freeze. Technically, the mayor can influence the rent guidelines board, but can't unilaterally cap rents. Tax hikes are also the state's call. Critics say Mamdani's socialist taunts of taxing big businesses could backfire. As Yale Insights argues, if large corporations flee New York, it's working-class residents who lose. JP Morgan Chase, founded in New York more than 200 years ago, has already shifted thousands of workers to Texas and Florida. Goldman Sachs and Citigroup have done the same. Over time, the exodus of corporate headquarters erodes the city's tax base. That's the very revenue needed to fund the services Mamdani champions. Together, these critiques underscore the tension at the heart of his campaign. Can a city built on capitalism afford a socialist mayor's dream? I mean, he can't wave a wand and make it happen, but even critics admit that he can shift the conversation. And that's already working. Housing and transit affordability are now the top voter concerns citywide. That's politics done right. Even before you win, you move the center. And here's why this is a case of democracy at work. Mamdani didn't win because he had money. He won because he had people. He built a campaign out of neighborhoods and not donors. He talked about groceries and bus stops, not GDPs. That's democracy doing what it's supposed to do, letting new, young, and first-generation voters shape the agenda. And that's probably what's bringing in all the endorsements as well. When Mamdani started, he had no billionaire donors, just volunteers and grassroots energy. First came AOC, who called him the most exciting candidate New York has seen in years. Her network brought in thousands of volunteers and small donors. Days later, Bernie Sanders endorsed him as well and said that Mamdani showed progressive politics isn't dead. Within 72 hours, the campaign raised over $6 million. Even Elon Musk weighed in. The billionaire tech entrepreneur reshared a clip of Governor Hochul endorsing Mamdani and wrote, "Zohran is the future of the Democratic Party." Now, was it a praise or shade? It's hard to tell because it's Musk. But either way, it broke the bubble. Business Insider noted how bizarrely both men at least share one common idea, that government should work efficiently. The difference is just that Musk wants that through privatization and Mamdani wants it through public investment. But the fact that a South Asian socialist from Queens can draw a reaction from one of the richest men on the planet tells you that this movement is being watched. Now, New York is a city of dreams, and there's a view that Mamdani's story could probably also only happen in a city like New York, because New York has that perfect storm: diversity, density, decades of organizing. It's the city where your neighbor could be a Hasidic Jew, your cab driver from Bangladesh, your roommate from Australia, your teacher from the Dominican Republic, and everyone's hustling together and also sharing the same subway delays. New York forces people to live together, argue together, survive together. And that's what makes its politics dynamic. And that's probably why someone like Zohran Mamdani, a Ugandan-born, Indian-origin Muslim socialist, can win here. But here's another view. Critics argue that Zohran Mamdani represents not just a new face for the Democratic Party, but a very different ideology within the party itself. And that means he's fighting establishment within the Democrats as much as the Republicans. A recent article described him as the future of a struggling US Democratic Party. Yet it cautioned that New York alone doesn't reflect the national electorate. Analysts say that Mamdani's style and policy focus, as in young, urban, immigrant-led, may energize the base but also risk alienating moderate voters in suburban or rural districts. Moreover, his past criticisms of the police and his identity may work in cosmopolitan New York but pose a barrier elsewhere. Many senior Democrats haven't endorsed him. They're worried that he might be too radical to carry broader electorates. In short, Mamdani is a litmus test for where the Democratic Party is headed. Bold, progressive, and youthful, but his success would require the party to embrace change, not just at the candidate level, but at the institutional level. Mamdani also faces political backlash for his stance on Israel and Gaza. He said that if the International Criminal Court issues an arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the leader visits New York, he would honor international law. That position made headlines and enemies in Washington. Given the United States' historical close alliance with Israel, no city mayor has the authority or political cover to act on an ICC warrant. For many centrist Democrats, the statement reinforced fears that Mamdani's global activism could complicate federal relationships and donor ties. It was a symbolic gesture of principle, but one that highlights how his moral politics may clash with the geopolitical realities of American power. But it's not just New York. Across the West, something is shifting. In Britain, the Labour left is rebuilding after years of collapse. In France, young voters are turning to candidates who promise equality over austerity. In Latin America, cities like Bogota and Santiago are electing mayors who sound more like organizers than politicians. All of these movements have a few things in common. They're young, they're diverse, and they're born from frustration, a feeling that traditional parties, both left and right, have stopped listening. That's what makes Zohran Mamdani's campaign so fascinating. He's not running on vague slogans about unity or hope. He's running on policy. And that concreteness is part of a bigger global trend, politics coming back down to earth. Now, I know it seems like globally the right wing is rising, but Mamdani's win flips that script. That says something about where urban politics is heading, because it's not just him. In Virginia, Senator Ghazala Hashmi, the first Muslim woman elected to the Virginia Senate, is now a major voice in statewide politics. She and Mamdani represent something bigger, that progressive, immigrant-led politics isn't confined to the coasts. It's moving inward, state by state. These stories tell us something about where democracy still breathes. That's in cities, campuses, neighborhoods, and not just in Washington. For South Asian and Muslim Americans, this moment is historic. Zohran, born to a Gujarati Muslim father and a Punjabi Hindu mother, raised in Queens, could be New York's first Muslim and first South Asian mayor. It's symbolic, yes, but also deeply practical. For decades, many South Asians in the US focused just on careers, not politics. Mamdani changes that. He proves that leadership can look like them, that they belong not just in hospitals and tech firms, but in the city hall. His affordability agenda resonates with immigrant families priced out of their own neighborhoods. And his outreach, multilingual videos, mosque visits, Bollywood references, connects with voters ignored by mainstream campaigns. Globally, South Asia barely noticed his rise. The Wire asked, why did India miss the Zohran Mamdani story? Maybe because his progressive politics don't fit the current nationalist mood. But for the global diaspora, it's huge. It shows that Muslims and immigrants can hold real power, not as tokens, but as decision makers. And here's my favorite part. In one of the most powerful moments of his campaign, Zohran Mamdani released a 6-minute video speaking openly about his identity as a Muslim and the Islamophobia he's faced. He recalled how Andrew Cuomo laughed when a host joked that he would cheer another 9/11. Another rival accused him of wanting to burn churches. Then he said what millions of American Muslims have long felt but rarely voiced. In post-9/11 America, where Muslims have been profiled, doxxed, and asked to soften their faith to be accepted, Mamdani's message lands differently. He's not apologizing for being Muslim. He's redefining what public faith looks like in American politics, one rooted in justice, dignity, and belonging. So what does it all mean? Now, whether or not Mamdani actually becomes mayor, he's definitely changed the conversation. He's made people believe that politics can be personal again, that a campaign built on buses, rent, and groceries can beat political dynasties and maybe even change what power looks like in America. So yes, this is bigger than New York. It's about whether democracy, after decades of inequality and disillusionment, can reinvent itself from the ground up. He's proven that democracy doesn't always have to come from the top down. Sometimes it starts in a city that never sleeps.